Your boy Densuo, aka the King of Salts, the saltiest boy in all of Gundam. I'm gonna go ahead and run down the EXS Gundam, which recently dropped. It's a pretty interesting suit, I think, overall. But is it gonna be able to keep up with the Queblis in 650? Let's find out. So we're gonna go ahead and go over a few things. If I'm not mistaken, it's only coming in at level 6, at cost 650, level 1. So let's go over a few things. So for starters, it is a 650, so that means it's going to have a 22-second cooldown whenever you get shot down. Melee priority is tier 2. Because it is a flyer, as with pretty much every flyer, well, almost every flyer, that is capable of being in ground and space. It does not have any compatibility with either ground or space, unfortunately, but it is what it is. But again, it can run in both ground and space, and it does have funnel-like moves, so it's still going to be something pretty nice to have. It is a 3-star rarity suit, as it should be. It is available in the gacha only. Right now, it does have 2 different banners, one with a half roll. Good luck with that if you... shout outs to Blue Shift having to dig deep for his waifu, for his robot waifu though, but at least he got him. And yeah, let's continue. Let's get back on track. If you look at the slots, it's got 5 close range, which is really low for that cost. It's got a whopping 22 medium range and a whopping 21 long range, so it's definitely going to be you're definitely going to be able to gear it out for damage. But we'll talk about what I'm going through with that later. But I want to just be clear there. That's just a suggestion, not the de facto follow what I do thing. Anyway, let's talk weapons and stats. As I just mentioned earlier, it is a 650, capable for both ground and space missions. It is a general. I'm actually kind of surprised. I was expecting it to be a support, actually, but hey. Kind of does make sense, though, given the very weak pilot that is known for piloting it, and of course the Alice system. So moving on from there, it is 1800 HP. So let's do a quick comparison in the 650 cost. Same HP as the 7th armor at level 3. Same as the level 5 Goog J at 650. By the way, if you have this suit, I sincerely recommend you do not use this suit in that cost. It struggles terribly there. You have the Kublai, which has 20k HP. You have the Zamel, which has a 2500k HP, as it should, given how big and slow it is. And then you have the Double Zeta at 2k. So with the ones that I have, it's below average, HP-wise. It's also not exactly a small boy either. So, yeah. You know, heads up on that. Did I put a tag on it? Oh yeah. See, like as you see, I don't even have a tag on the Goog J level 5. I tried it once at that cost, and it really did not go well. So yeah, don't try that. For defenses, it's pretty resilient, but ballistic and beam comes in at 34, which is better than the 7th armor, better than the Goog J. Let me just check on the Kublai real quick. 37, I'm sorry, 12, 37, 25. So definitely better defenses there, minus melee. It's about the same. No, it's comparable with the Zamel. Don't forget, I do have some melee boost on that, so only 12. And then with the Double Zeta, it actually has more as well. So it's got pretty good resistances. You can consider adding HP onto the suit. For ranged, it's coming in at 50 by default, and that's a lot. You know, the Goog J comes in at 54. The Quebli has 45 by default. No, AXS is 50. The Zamel, of course, is always, you know, is going to have a lot of range, and the Double Zeta, you have to build for it on the Double Zeta. So EXS is definitely going to be hitting hard, by, you know, just by default. Melee is 15, but given how bulky it is, I don't really, and given what kind of weapons package it brings, I don't really think you want to even be running around with this in melee range. But hey, if you're comfortable with it, go for it. that aside, it's still a general, so it should still be able to deal some decent damage with its melee. It's just bulky. Does have at least priority 2, but we'll still check on its skills in a moment to see if it's really worth it. Movement speed is 135. Looks like it's above average there. Top speed is 220. Best in class. Thruster gauge is 70. Looks about average, minus the double zeta, but the double zeta is the exception to this. But again, this is going by what I have. Turning speed is 63, which is actually decent because it does not have a shield. We could probably go into further detail if we look into the database. Let's double check that. Let's see, 135, 220. Yeah, it's mostly keeping up with everybody, so nothing to really worry about there in terms of mobility. Ah, no, let me correct myself. Looks like I'm wrong. If you are a flyer, you're not gonna. It looks like flyers just don't have any compatibility. Period. Even if they are ground only, like the Ashimar. So that kind of sucks. So yeah, if we look at all these suits when it comes to what it can do, mobility wise, the EXS, despite its bulk, it can actually get around. Thruster's pretty, is decent. But then again, when you really think about it, everything that's coming up in all these costs are arguably high-powered suits anyway, so they should be able to do that. So there you go. Let's get back on to where we're at. Let's go ahead and look at the suit's weapons next. So we have its beam smart gun, big old gun with a radar with a radar attachment on it, literally. So here's the thing, I'm gonna show you it, of course, in practice. But from what I tried it out, because I haven't sorted it with it yet. I've only really just messed around with it in free practice because I haven't had a chance in 650 because everybody wants to spam it and then nobody's running support or raid, and somebody's got to fill that role. The beam smart gun does not stagger when it shoots. I believe it shoots 3 shots, or is it 5? Like the Goog J rifle or the Goog Marine rifle. I'm sorry, the Goog Gelgoog, I think it's the Gelgoog M commander type, I think it is. This one right here, it's decent power. It's okay power at 700. Has a heat rate of 20, so it's not going to overheat when you first shoot it the first time, but if you shoot it again, it's going to. It's got a great range at 400 meters, 1.5 cooldown, 18 seconds of overheat. It takes 4 seconds to charge it. When you charge it, it will stagger. However, if you shoot this weapon as a charge shot, it's going to overheat. Doesn't matter where your heat gauge is, it's going to overheat. Beam Saber, pretty good damage on it, 2.5k, 2.5 second cooldown, pretty standard thing, pretty standard affair. Head Vulcans, we're going to check if it has a better rate of fire, but this is times 4. So we'll check that in practice range, but otherwise, typical Head Vulcans. However, it's got a bit of a lengthy reload at 10 seconds. Let me compare that real quick. What's a suit with Head Vulcans that I can look at real quick? Yeah. So it does have a longer cooldown. So we're going to have to check that to see if it does have a superior fire rate. Otherwise it's the usual damage, the usual range. And of course, Vulcans, as always, they tend to have a good ASL and your auto sight lock, and you are also able to fire them while boosting. Next we have the backpack beam cannon times 4. 90% heat on one shot, 1300 power, so it hits pretty hard. And 400 range, you fire it once, 90% heat, 5 second cooldown, 20 second overheat. Can't move while firing it though. Same thing with the 5 beam cannon, you also cannot move while firing these. 650 power, 50 heat rate, no cooldown time, so you can fire it quickly if you need to. 15 second cooldown though, so keep aware of that. Next we have the head income, 1500 power, 50 heat, 300 range. So incomes, of course, you have to lock onto them, then fire, lock them on, fire. 2-second cooldown in between, 20-second overheat. And then last but not least, the one of its most infamous weapons, the reflector incomes. These are really, really nasty in EX versus as well, by the way. 2000 power, overheat on use, 350 range, 22 seconds for overheat. So let's see, two weapons at 350 meters, one at 300, two at 400, and then the Vulcans at 150 as usual. So this is a suit, even though it's a general, this is what I like to call an off-pick general. That's what this does. For shortcuts, of course, do it as you like. I'm personally not going to have the beam saber in my configuration. This is what I'm using. This is the way I'm using it personally. I'll probably put the beam saber like on square triangle probably. But I don't really expect to be in melee range with this suit at all. Like, at all. But if I need to, I can just quickly swap to the smart gun, then hit manual weapon switch once, and they'll have the beam saber. Let's talk about the skills. So you have leg shock absorber level 2. So whenever you land from a jump, whenever you do a boost, you know, things like that, you accumulate some gray damage, if you will, think fighting games, to your legs. This reduces it by 20% whenever you do a jump, 10% after boosting, and also they all recover, everything of that recovers 1% faster. Not a bad skill. Emergency evasion, dodge roll, typical standard, you know, fare for the, for a general. High performance balancer. Whenever you land from a jump or after a boost dash, you can cancel into a melee swing. So if you do need to get in up close and personal, you can land, and you land a stun with something, you can combo it. But that's likely going to be with the beam smart gun, or perhaps the incoms, depending on the situation. We'll check that in a moment too. You have high spec ambac, personal favorite skill of mine for space. When you are in space and you are doing a boost, if you end the boost, hold the stick in the direction that you're moving, and when you finish your boost, instead of doing the braking animation, you will instead proceed back to normal movement. Force injector is also the other skill that's great for space. This also does apply to ground though. Whenever you're boosting, let's say for example you're boosting to the left and you let go of the stick by accident, so now you're doing the braking animation. While you're doing the braking animation or landing from a jump, you can go ahead and hit the boost button again and enter another boost movement. Of course, be careful that you don't overheat your thrusters, but this is nice to know because you can use that to juke people, or if you make a mistaken movement, this helps you make up for it. Damage control reduces staggers when hit consecutively by attacks without suppressing effects, self-explanatory. Anti-blast stabilizer, somebody blows up in front of you, you don't get hard staggered, great skill. Special back add-on buffer, they hit you in the back, you take 15% less damage. This is level 2, so it's 15% instead. Great skill, great skill. That means if you get hit on the back, you're going to take less damage. This is also going to be extra useful in space, because instead of your legs being broken, it's your back that can get busted. You have the chest eye field. This is kind of cheap. If you get hit in the middle, you're taking 50% less damage when hit by a ranged beam attack. Reduces or cancels staggers after being attacked. So that's kind of crazy. That's really strong. Really, really strong. Especially because the majority of attacks in higher cost tend to be beam based anyway. There you go. And this is on a general too. Man, they're just not giving raid users a break, huh? You have the Alice ability boost. Once you get to 30% HP, you do get a boost to mobility. I'm gonna assume this is gonna be much like the biosensor skill, where you'll get a mobility boost and you get a dodge roll. I was kind of hoping that Alice was gonna be something else, but given how it is in lore, how it activates on its own anyway, I guess that makes sense. And then last but not least, you have the transform mode. We're gonna look over that in a second too, to see how its stats change. So when you transform, you only have two weapons, the beam smart gun, again. However, look at the weapon. It's different. It's listed as an optional instead. Has more range. The heat goes down slower. The heat is less, so it's 15 heat, but also significantly less damage. 1.3 second cooldown per fire, 22 second overheat, 1 second charge. And then the backpack beam cannon transformed. Doesn't stagger, but you can spam it because, well, you can't spam it. It's one hit overheat. So yeah, we're gonna check in practice mode if the backpack beam cannon is overheated. If that means you can't use it normally. If it does overheat, then that kind of sucks. But if it doesn't overheat, then that's gonna give you some options for flight mode to make it worthwhile. Now let's see if any skills change when you transform. You still have emergency evasion. You have anti-blast stabilizer still. You gain the shock dampener skill. So that reduces or cancels stagger after being attacked. In other words, it makes it harder for you to get staggered when you're flying. However, if you get hit with a melee attack, or if you get hit with a tackle, and any attack that's supposed to knock you down, so down swings, Drayson's Heat Lance, or for that matter, the E3DS, same thing. For tackles, they will knock you down and knock you out of flight mode. Damage control, same as before. Transformation optimizer reduces thruster gauge consumption when activating high-speed movement or transforming back to normal mode by 60%. Reduces thruster gauge consumption from high-speed movement by 25%. So that's really, really good. This is great. One of the biggest problems when you're using a flight suit mode is that when you get out of flight mode, it costs a lot of boost, and that has a bad habit of overheating your thrusters. And then you land, and then you're kind of in trouble. So this is actually really, really huge. This is really, really nice skill. This is great. And then not only that, then you also get the 25% thruster consumption reduction when you're flying. That's great. So that means you should be able to use that to effectively get away from some people if you're in trouble. Take advantage of invincibility when you get knocked down, transform, get out of dodge. The ram attack is obvious. When you're flying and you do high-speed movement, you will stagger the opponent. Same thing as before, special add-on buffer, ability boost for Alice, and chest eye field and transform. So that's mainly the thing. The main thing that you're getting is the shock dampeners, the ram attack, and the transformation optimizer. Those are the main differences when you're in flight mode or in mobile suit mode. For loadouts, I kind of feel like it's going to be important for me to kind of spam my weapons. And since staggers are so important, I kind of think I'm going to end up having to use the beam smart gun. So this is what I'm using currently. This is of course subject to change. This is of course not what I would consider meta. This is just my personal thing. A little bit of melee defense because that's what fit. I'm running all 4 auxiliary generators, 1 through 4. Only 2 in attack because it already has a pretty high range strength anyway. And then make myself a little tougher with ballistic and beam defense because this suit, again, in my opinion, looks like an off pick. So I'm going to be hanging back like a support personally when I use this suit. So that means supports are probably going to be firing at me. So that extra defense helps. Low defense, low HP too, as it is personally. So hopefully this doesn't bite me in the rear end when it comes to not running around without leg armor, but we'll see. But by using those cooldown pieces with the auxiliary generators, that brings down the cooldown of the beam smart gun from 18 seconds to 11 to just about 12 seconds. Doesn't matter about the beam saber. Nobody cares about the reload on the Vulcans. The backpack beam cannon is going to go from 20 seconds to 13.2. The thigh cannon is going to go from 15 seconds to just 10, basically 10 seconds. The head incoms is going to go from 20 seconds to 13.2, and then the reflector incoms are going to go from 22 seconds to 14.5. So I think being able to spam all your weapons that you have is going to be a great way to deal damage with this weapon, with this suit. So that's why I feel that this is probably going to be the best way for me to go about it. But again, that's subject to what you guys want to do. Incoms, if I'm not mistaken, right? Incoms are, they do gain benefit from ASL parts. We're going to test that in a moment to check and make sure that that is the case. But maybe this suit can run ASL parts. But the thing is, Let me. It's gonna be ultimately checking out to see if it's worth it or not. I can't use level 4 of that. Can't use any of these, which is unfortunate. But yeah, ASL level 1 and level 2, I believe incoms and funnels do gain from using ASL. So that might be something you could also consider. But I kind of like, I've always never really, me personally, I've never had an issue using incoms or funnel type weapons. Anyway, they're pretty easy to lock on with, so probably wouldn't use that. So that covers the weapons, that covers my personal recommendation for shortcuts. We talked about the skills. We made a comparison of its stats. So let's take it to practice mode and wrap this up. We're going to go with equal cost suits here. No point in trying to act like this suit is stronger than it is. Now let's go to the training ground. I forgot to check the cooldowns on the flight mode weapons, but usually that's not a big deal. But we'll check that in a minute anyway. So, like I was saying earlier, if you look at the beam smart gun, right, look at your heat gauge. Once it's fully charged, it goes yellow. So remember that. Whenever your energy weapons show yellow, that means the next time you fire the weapon, it's going to overheat. One thing I'm kind of disappointed, though, this is one criticism I have about this suit, is given how the beam smart gun is and how a lot of the weapons on this suit are aiming towards you being at range, it's kind of disappointing that this suit doesn't have, and not only that, but the beam smart gun has a freaking radome on it. It's kind of weird that this suit doesn't have a zoom option for the scope, for when you zoom in. It's kind of weird. But yeah, beam smart gun, 4 times, shoots 4 times. But as you can see on the gauge, you have to get it to about 80% before you can fire it again without overheating. So this is another reason why I think it's important to cycle your weapons on this suit. Let's check the head Vulcans. Well, it has enough ammo to land a stagger, but unfortunately this one has the same rate of fire as normal head Vulcans. That's unfortunate. I wasn't expecting it to be godlike like the GP02, but that's a little disappointing. From there you have the beam cannon. Staggers on hit. Pretty good damage. But as you can see here, you gotta wait a while, like also on this weapon, or else it's gonna overheat. Looks like you should be able to fire this one 3 times before it overheats. Yep, 3 times. Next you have the incoms. Let me check the difference in size. Yeah, about the same size for the incoms, so that's fine. That's not a problem. Let's wait for the suit to respawn, and then we'll check the lock-on time. Pretty much instant. All right, it is overheat on one use. That's actually pretty fast. Wow. Oh boy. Alright, so the head incom is basically like a normal funnel, and then the reflector incom is basically a shot with a long wind-up. So there you have it. One thing you can do with this, wait, let me check this real quick. Does this stagger? It does not. I see. That's unfortunate. Alright. So none of the weapons that it has heart staggers. As long as I mean, at least in mobile suit mode. That overheats in one shot. And that does not overheat your beam smart gun. Very nice. So let's check the back cannon. Same thing. Alright, same thing. Okay, this isn't half bad. So this is a suit where you really want to switch up your weapons all the time. It's not bad. Let me rapid fire them and see if it does stagger though. No, it does not. Alright, so there you go. That was the thigh cannon does not the thigh cannon does not stagger. So your main stagger weapons are going to be a charge shot from your beam smart gun. And then of course comboing over to these two weapons. Okay, while you do the incom, the reflector incom, you cannot move. So be aware of that when you're using that move. Head incom, however, does allow you to move. But the reflector incom, you cannot move when you're firing it. So that's one of those moves that you're going to use for very clear punishes. So yeah, that pretty much covers this suit. Let's check the melee swings last but not least. Okay, a stab. Side swipe. Looks like standard Fetty side swings. Neutral swing is a poke. It's kind of hard to see with it though because the suit's so bulky. Yeah, this is another reason why I don't really like meleeing with this suit. Or I figured it was going to be a bad idea to melee with this. This suit's way huge, so it's kind of hard to get those ranges in. But downswing though, that's LOL tier right there. They gave it GP03's downswing. That's funny. That is funny. You should be able to combo that with this suit. Nah, I goofed up. I forgot that I don't have melee there, so there's muscle memory for you. But let me check. You should be able to. I did it again. Oh well. Let me try one more time just to make sure I'm not losing my head here. But even then, that's pretty costly to land a melee. Doesn't even stagger like that either. I don't know. I mean, you could use it as a surprise move, I guess, but nah, I wouldn't recommend it. I don't think you should be in melee range with this suit at all. I'm just gonna leave it at that. I don't think this suit has any business being in melee range. Now, let me check if it has enough time to combo both of them. Let me check that. Let's let it respawn. Kind of hope they change that for this map where they make the suit spawn in a little faster. But yeah, that pretty much covers everything for this suit, I think. I think this is a weapon where you want to... This is a suit where you really want to just cycle your weapons constantly because a lot of them overheat. So, just do it that way. Yeah, it's not worth it. I think it's definitely one of those suits where you're just going to be cycling your weapons. I do think auxiliary generators are going to be key for this suit, so that you can go ahead and just blast away and just keep going. Yeah, that should be a combo right there. Actually, the back cannons into the thigh cannon should be a combo. Yeah, that should be a combo. More than enough. So yeah, that covers EXS. Hopefully this video is useful to you. And if you're pulling for it, good luck. See you on the battlefield. On.